So what's interesting is that he got this rule coming from, quite a humble background.
Here's a man who was born in Camberwell, didn't go to one of the great public schools, wasn't linked to the royal family at all.
Timothy Lawrence came from a very ordinary family. He did very well at school and he got a scholarship to go into the Navy, which was hard to get.
What happens when Princess Anne's husband accidentally overhears a conversation that could destroy the British throne forever? How far would Queen Consort Camilla go to keep her darkest secrets buried, even if it meant eliminating those who threatened to expose her? Sir Timothy Lawrence never imagined that a single whispered conversation at Royal Ascot.
Princess Anne and her current husband first came to the public's attention after they were caught writing steamy letters to one another. So just who is the real Sir Timothy Lawrence? The truth about the Princess Royal's husband will leave you stunned.
Would thrust him into the most dangerous conspiracy in modern royal history. What started as an innocent day at the races became a life-threatening investigation that would expose Camilla's terrifying web of medical manipulation, financial theft, and attempted murder. This isn't just another royal scandal. This is the story of how one man's courage prevented the complete destruction of the British monarchy from within. Stay with us as we reveal the shocking truth that nearly brought down centuries of royal tradition and discover the lengths Camilla was willing to go to protect her grip on power. The fatal whisper at Royal Ascot. Royal Ascot. 2025 arrived with all the pageantry Britain's elite expected. The summer sun cast golden rays across the pristine racecourse, where aristocrats gathered in their finest attire, champagne glasses reflecting the afternoon light, as gentle breezes carried sounds of thundering hooves and cheering crowds. But beneath this polished veneer of British tradition, tensions within the royal family had reached an explosive boiling point. King Charles III made what many observers noted as one of his most fragile public appearances since his cancer diagnosis became public in 2024.
King Charles has given a rare health update about his ongoing cancer battle. His Majesty spoke candidly with a cancer survivor during a visit to the English town of Newmarket.
Despite the palace's carefully worded medical updates suggesting steady recovery, Charles appeared genuinely gaunt and exhausted. His pale complexion, barely masked by layers of expertly applied makeup, told a completely different story from the official narrative being maintained by Buckingham Palace. Every labored breath, every unsteady step, and every moment of visible struggle revealed the true devastating extent of his declining health in ways that no amount of royal spin could disguise. The stark contrast between the ailing monarch and his vibrant successor became painfully obvious as Prince William and Catherine moved through the crowd with natural ease and confidence. Their every interaction with dignitaries and distinguished guests reinforced their position as the monarchy's inevitable future. The press coverage was relentless in portraying William and Kate as ready leaders who represented everything the modern British public wanted. Subtle suggestions appeared in major newspapers that the transition might come sooner than officially acknowledged. This overwhelming public focus on the younger generation sent devastating waves of panic through Queen Consort Camilla. She sat rigidly beside her frail husband, her practiced smile serving as a desperate mask for the terror consuming her thoughts. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped her handbag with desperate intensity, watching helplessly as her carefully constructed position seemed to slip away. The writing was clearly on the wall. If Charles continued deteriorating at this pace, the succession would accelerate, leaving Camilla as nothing more than a forgotten footnote in royal history. Sir Timothy Lawrence, Princess Anne's steadfast husband and former Royal Navy Vice Admiral, occupied his customary position as the quiet observer. At 70, Tim had earned his knighthood through decades of loyal service to the crown. His military background had taught him to notice details others might overlook. As he chatted with Anne about the races, Tim's trained ear caught fragments of an urgent conversation. "Camilla, leaning toward a trusted advisor with obvious desperation, spoke words that would forever change his life and the royal family's destiny. "This throne must remain in my hands forever, no matter what happens to Charles." The casual cruelty embedded in those words, delivered with calculated precision, revealed a truth Tim had long suspected, but never dared voice.
Sir Timothy Lawrence is the man we're used to seeing by Princess Anne's side.
Out of all the royals, Princess Anne does seem probably one of the happiest, happily married, very settled, no drama, no impropriety.
This wasn't a worried wife's concern. This was a declaration of war from someone willing to sacrifice everything for power. Tim's naval instincts recognized the threat immediately. Every fiber of his being screamed that what he witnessed represented clear danger to the royal family he'd sworn to protect. Uncovering decades of deception. Driven by duty and justice forged during military service, Tim couldn't let Camilla's disturbing declaration fade into memory. His naval values made it impossible to ignore what appeared to be a conspiracy against the crown itself. His first strategic move involved reaching out to Andrew Parker Bowles, Camilla's former husband, through military connections. The small pub on London's outskirts provided perfect atmosphere for frank discussion. Andrew, now 85, and bearing the weathered appearance of disappointment, agreed to meet with weariness, suggesting he'd waited years for someone to ask the right questions about his ex-wife's character. "She was never a real wife to me, Tim, and certainly never a proper mother to our children," Andrew began, his voice carrying decades of suppressed pain. "From our wedding day in 1973, I understood I was nothing more than a stepping stone in her plan to reach Charles and claim the ultimate prize she'd always coveted." The portrait that emerged was devastating. Camilla's consuming ambition had systematically destroyed every meaningful relationship without hesitation or remorse. Even her children, Tom and Laura, were treated as secondary considerations in her pursuit of royal status. Andrew recounted heartbreaking instances where Camilla chose her royal aspirations over family's basic needs. "I'll never forget when our son Tom was burning with fever, crying in agony at the hospital," Andrew continued, hands shaking as he gripped his whiskey glass. "I begged Camilla to come home to comfort her sick child, but she was at Highgrove with Charles, laughing as if nothing else mattered. She told me her life didn't revolve around the children. She needed space for herself." The most damning revelation came from Andrew's description of a confrontation between Camilla and Princess Anne during a private family gathering in the 1980s. Anne had challenged Camilla's behavior with characteristic bluntness. "You abandoned your children to insert yourself into my brother's marriage to Diana," Anne had declared. "That's not love. That's cold calculation designed to climb the power ladder." These revelations painted a comprehensive picture of a woman whose hunger for the crown had overridden every maternal instinct and human decency. Tim left that meeting with growing dread about Camilla's plans as Charles's health declined. The evidence suggested someone willing to sacrifice her own children would stop at nothing to protect her position. The medical manipulation conspiracy. Tim's investigation uncovered evidence of something far more sinister than royal ambition. Through contacts within palace medical staff, disturbing rumors surfaced about secret meetings between Camilla and King Charles's personal physician. The breakthrough came when Edward Thompson, a loyal servant with 20 years at Clarence House, approached Tim with shocking evidence. Edward had installed a hidden camera in the king's private medical room, driven by suspicions about secretive conferences between Camilla and Dr. Michael Harrington. What the camera captured was medical malpractice, orchestrated at the highest levels. The video showed Camilla confronting the physician with explicit threats, revealing her desperation and ruthlessness. "If you reveal Charles's real condition, I'll destroy you and your entire family." Camilla's voice rang with venom. "This throne is mine. Keep him weak enough for occasional public appearances, but never strong enough to threaten my position." The implications were staggering. Camilla wasn't just manipulating politics. she was actively sabotaging her husband's cancer treatment to maintain control.
Said that King Charles spent part of the day in the hospital after suffering the side effects, it says, from his cancer treatment. Let's go right now to NBC's Raf Sanchez, who is in London.
Dr. Harrington, who dedicated his career to royal service, found himself trapped between professional ethics and personal destruction. Tim watched in horror as the video revealed Charles being pressured to sign power of attorney documents, transferring millions in charitable funds from Princess Anne. These weren't small amounts. The funds included portions of the sovereign grant worth approximately $86 million annually, specifically allocated to Anne for her charitable work, according to Queen Elizabeth's will. "I don't want to sign," Charles whispered weakly. "This is Mother's fund for Anne. I can't rob her legacy." But Camilla's manipulation was relentless and calculated. "If you don't sign, I'll leave you, Charles. Do you want to lose both me and your mother's legacy?" The scene was heartbreaking in its cruelty. Charles, confused and weakened by deliberately reduced medication, eventually signed with a shaking hand. His eyes showed clear regret as he betrayed his sister's inheritance under his wife's coercion. Tim realized this wasn't just medical malpractice. It was systematic theft of royal assets using the king's illness as leverage. The hidden footage revealed multiple instances of Camilla meeting privately with Dr. Harrington, each time reinforcing her threats and ensuring Charles remained weak enough to manipulate but functional enough to avoid suspicion. She had created a perfect system of control, using her husband's cancer as a tool for consolidating power while appearing to be his devoted caregiver. The deadly cover-up attempt. Just as Tim thought he'd gathered enough evidence to expose the conspiracy, the situation turned murderous. Edward Thompson, the brave servant who'd provided crucial video evidence, simply vanished one night without trace. A chilling reminder of Camilla's reach and willingness to eliminate threats. Tim's investigation posed an even greater danger to Camilla's carefully constructed web of lies and criminal activities. Her extensive spy network within the palace had identified him as the primary threat to her plans, and her response was swift and absolutely brutal in its intent. On a rain-soaked September night, as Tim drove home from meeting another potential source, he found himself the target of a professional assassination attempt. A black sedan with no license plates suddenly accelerated from the darkness behind him, ramming his vehicle with clear intent to push him off a cliff on London's treacherous outskirts. Only Tim's lightning-fast military reflexes saved his life. Recognizing the mortal danger instantly, he managed to swerve off the road, sending his car crashing into a shallow ravine with tremendous force. In the split second before devastating impact, he threw himself from the vehicle, rolling across cold, muddy ground and sustaining cuts and bruises, but miraculously escaping death. Lying in the freezing rain, his heart pounding and body aching from injuries, Tim understood with crystal clarity that Camilla had crossed an irreversible line separating political manipulation from cold-blooded murder. This was no longer about family disputes or succession politics. This had become a matter of life and death, involving a woman so consumed by ambition she was prepared to kill. The failed assassination attempt only strengthened Tim's resolve, rather than intimidating him into silence. When he called Anne from beside his wrecked car, her voice filled with terror and fury. "She's a complete devil, Tim. We must act immediately before she tries again and possibly succeeds." The couple immediately went into hiding at a secure location, understanding that Camilla's next attempt might prove more successful. But Tim's dangerous investigation had already gathered enough concrete evidence to bring down the entire conspiracy, and he remained determined to see justice served, regardless of personal cost. Exposing the truth to Prince William. With his life in genuine danger and mounting evidence creating an urgent timeline, Tim knew he had to involve the full royal establishment. Through encrypted communications known only to closest family members, He arranged a clandestine meeting with Prince William that would change royal history. The future king was genuinely shocked by the conspiracy's comprehensive scope and criminal nature. William immediately grasped both the existential danger it represented and the opportunity to permanently cleanse the monarchy of its most toxic element. In Tim's countryside safe house, with Princess Anne present as both witness and victim, Tim methodically presented the complete case against Camilla. The video evidence of medical manipulation, financial documents proving theft of Anne's inheritance, testimony from Andrew Parker Bowles about Camilla's lifelong ruthless ambition, and undeniable evidence of assassination attempts painted a picture of systematic betrayal. This transcends simple betrayal. This is treason against the royal family and British people, William declared, his voice shaking with barely controlled anger. She's systematically destroying my father's health, stealing grandmother's legacy, and attempting to murder family members who threaten her crimes. They spent hours developing a comprehensive strategy to neutralize Camilla's threat while protecting both Charles's dignity and the monarchy's reputation. William would present evidence to the Royal Council through emergency private meetings. Anne would gather additional documentation of financial irregularities, and Tim would serve as the key witness whose testimony could corroborate every aspect of their explosive case. The three conspirators understood they were taking enormous risks by challenging someone who'd already demonstrated willingness to commit murder. But the evidence was so overwhelming, and the threat to the monarchy so severe that they had no choice but to act decisively. The Royal Council's judgment. Within weeks, the Royal Council convened an unprecedented emergency session at Buckingham Palace under strictest security. The ornate conference room filled with senior advisors, palace lawyers, Home Office representatives, and carefully selected royal family members, but notably excluded Camilla herself. William presented the damning evidence Tim had gathered at enormous personal risk. The hidden video footage of Camilla threatening Dr. Harrington played on a large screen, her cold voice echoing through the room as she declared ownership of the throne and willingness to destroy anyone opposing her. "If you reveal Charles's condition, I'll destroy you and your family. This throne is mine," her recorded voice proclaimed with chilling clarity. The seasoned advisors, despite decades of handling royal scandals, sat in stunned silence as the betrayal's full scope became undeniably clear. William continued presenting evidence. Andrew Parker Bowles' testimony about Camilla's lifelong pattern of ruthless ambition, the financial documents showing theft of Anne's charitable funds, and detailed accounts of the assassination attempt on Tim Lawrence. Each piece of evidence built an irrefutable case of criminal conspiracy. Princess Anne added her own testimony with characteristic directness. "My mother's will was explicit. These charitable funds were designated for my community work. Camilla exploited my brother's illness to steal what rightfully belonged to the people these charities serve." After 3 hours of intense deliberation and debate about the monarchy's future, the council reached its unanimous verdict. The decision was unprecedented in its severity, but necessary given the crime's magnitude. Camilla would be immediately stripped of all executive authority and decision-making power within the royal household, while being allowed to maintain her ceremonial position as Queen Consort for essential public appearances to avoid constitutional crisis. All charitable funds and financial assets would be transferred back to Princess Anne and Prince William with comprehensive legal safeguards preventing future manipulation. Most critically, absolute secrecy would be maintained to protect both Charles's dignity during his health crisis and the monarchy's carefully maintained public reputation during this vulnerable transition period. The final reckoning and lasting consequences. The official explanation, crafted by palace public relations experts, simply stated that Queen Consort Camilla was withdrawing from administrative responsibilities due to health concerns, focusing on ceremonial duties supporting the king. The British media speculated wildly, but never learned the true story of the conspiracy that nearly destroyed the crown. For Camilla, The punishment proved worse than public humiliation. Stripped of real power and isolated within the palace she'd schemed to control, she became a prisoner of her own criminal ambition. The crown she'd sacrificed everything to obtain was now merely ceremonial decoration worn for cameras, while others made every important decision. The woman who'd manipulated her way to the pinnacle of British society found herself completely powerless, watching helplessly as the authority she'd killed to obtain slipped away forever. Her isolation was complete. No longer trusted by family members who'd discovered her crimes, no longer wielding influence over palace operations, and constantly monitored to prevent further criminal activity. Tim Lawrence stood beside Princess Anne at subsequent royal events, his quiet demeanor unchanged, but eyes reflecting the satisfaction of duty honorably fulfilled against overwhelming odds. The man who'd started as an unwilling witness had become the guardian of royal integrity, protecting the crown from its most dangerous internal threat through courage and unwavering commitment to justice. As he watched Anne gracefully manage her restored charitable funds with the dedication that had always defined her service, Tim reflected on how a single moment of alertness at Royal Ascot had prevented the greatest constitutional crisis in modern British history. The investigation had cost him nearly everything: his safety, his peace of mind, and almost his life, but had saved the monarchy from complete corruption. Camilla's darkest secret, her willingness to sacrifice her husband's health, steal from his family, and commit murder to maintain power, had finally been exposed and neutralized forever. The conspiracy she'd spent decades building was dismantled in weeks once the truth emerged. The British crown survived this unprecedented internal threat not through grand public gestures or dramatic revelations, but through the quiet courage of a naval officer who understood that true loyalty sometimes requires the greatest personal sacrifice. The monarchy had been permanently cleansed of its most trusted betrayer, ensuring that centuries of royal tradition would continue unburdened by criminal ambition. Charles, still battling cancer but now receiving proper medical care, began showing signs of improvement once Camilla's medical sabotage ended. Though he never learned the full extent of his wife's betrayal, the enhanced treatment protocols recommended by honest physicians gave him renewed strength and hope for recovery. The royal family's internal dynamics shifted dramatically as trust was rebuilt among those who'd remained loyal, while the cancer of Camilla's influence was excised. William and Kate's preparation for eventual succession continued with renewed confidence, knowing the transition would be free from the manipulation that had nearly destroyed everything. Princess Anne's charitable work flourished with her restored resources, benefiting countless communities and causes that had suffered during Camilla's theft. The funds returned to their intended purpose of serving the British people rather than feeding one woman's insatiable hunger for power and control. If this incredible true story of royal conspiracy, criminal betrayal, and heroic intervention has amazed you with its shocking revelations about corruption at the highest levels of British society, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explosive investigations into the secret world operating behind the carefully guarded walls of the British royal family. The truth about what really happens in the corridors of power is often far stranger and more dangerous than any fiction we could possibly imagine, and we're committed to bringing you these hidden stories that shape our world.